Hello, I'm MJ, your host for another exciting Celona product video, this time on integrating your Celona Private 5G LAN network logically into your corporate enterprise network. After you plan for your deployment, whether it is a small lab, proof of concept, or production, including planning coverage in the target area, determining where you will rack the edge, determining where you can get power and Ethernet or a fiber run back to the corporate network, you are ready to start planning the logical network deployment. What I'm demonstrating here should handle most of the typical deployments. In future videos, we will look at advanced topics such as Layer 2 bridging, IP multicasting, and Celona supernetting. But this video demonstrates what we have in most of our deployments today, which is the Celona Edge deployed on-site with either a non-VLAN all-native switching environment or a trunk port to one or more VLANs. As edgeless moves networking logic into the access point, these concepts will still apply. Let's start with a logical overview of the network topology. The Celona Access Point is an outdoor AP2148 dialed down to 15 dBm power in an RF shield box along with a Zebra TC78 handheld phone with integrated barcode scanner. I have my laptop with a USB-C cable connected to the Zebra TC78 so that I can screencast to show you IP addressing as we connect the phone in different logical ways to the Celona network. The core of this site is a TP-linked managed switch model ER605. The important functionality in this switch for this demonstration is 802.1q VLAN tagging support, as well as being able to stand up DHCP servers on each VLAN. In your network enterprise, this can be multiple switches, routers, and DHCP servers. Everything in light green is the ER605 switch. Connected to the switch is this MacBook, the Celona AP21, the Celona Edge on 2 ports on both an untagged native VLAN 1 as well as 2 separate VLANs, one being an IEEE 802.1q VLAN tagged as VLAN 1010 and the other as VLAN 1020. The switch has an uplink to the Celona corporate network. The whole point of today's demonstration is to show you how easy it is to control where private cellular traffic flows, whether through the native VLAN or a tagged VLAN. As I had mentioned, I have both the Edge Express data ports connected to the switch, and that is another layer of control that we have. We can choose which data port on the Celona Edge is used, and being able to control which physical port is used for different client devices can be good for those organizations that require that level of separation. Regardless of the VLAN used, I have the core switch's traffic going through the uplink. Let's look at the core switch configuration. In the system status page, I can see my uplink port has an IP address of 1030.120 given to it by the upstream router. In the LAN configuration of the switch, I have 3 DHCP server scopes defined: 192.168.8 on the native VLAN 1, 10.10 on VLAN 1010, 10.20 on VLAN 1020. In the VLAN configuration page, we can see untagged native VLAN 1 is on all non-uplink ports. The Celona Edge data port 1 is connected to port 4 for VLAN 1010, and the Celona Edge data port 2 is connected to port 2 for VLAN 1020. For the 5 DHCP clients on the switch, the top entry, 192.168.8.106, is this laptop. The next entry, 192.168.8.105, is the Celona Access Point AP21. That leaves us 3 DHCP clients in the middle. I have a screenshot of my local Edge Manager UI. Hardware MAC address A64D and 192.168.8.101. That is the IP address shown in the Celona Orchestrator, and that corresponds to the middle switch listed DHCP client. On the switch DHCP client list, that leaves us these 2 similar looking MAC addresses differing by just that last pair in the unique identifier, 00 and 01. 192.168.8.104 and 1020.0.101. These represent 2 Celona external IP domains, one on the native VLAN 1 and one on VLAN 1020. You might ask, hey, where is the VLAN 1010 10.10 IP address client? We'll get to that soon. Going back to the Celona Edge instance configuration page, let's discuss the IP domain section. To recall, in the cellular protocol, there is no concept of DHCP. When the cellular client attaches to a cell, the IP address for the client device is transmitted in the cellular session. In public cellular, this IP address comes from the public provider in a provider block of addresses for which you have no control nor domain. Right? It's not your network. In private cellular, this flow for IP addressing still occurs, but specifically with Celona IP domains, you have control of IP addressing source and network flow through your enterprise VLANs. When you get a new Celona Edge, none of these IP domains, internal nor external, will exist except for the default internal network domain, a 169 IP address space offered by the Celona Edge. The default IP domain cannot be disabled nor altered. In other videos, to change things like IP address source, I have changed the device profile on the specific device in the SIMs and Devices page. However, in today's demonstration, I will do it another way, by keeping the device profile the same for the Zebra TC78, and instead we'll change which IP domain is linked to the device profile. In this manner, you can change the IP domain for all of the devices that have the same device profile instead of just a single device. Let's verify connectivity. Let's verify the IP address. Right now, the IP domain for the Zebra TC78 has been assigned a default internal IP domain. The default IP domain is good for some NAT-only deployments for quick default IP addressing. However, while an IP address is just a set of numbers, we've seen Apple devices and Zebra tablets on Windows not able to connect when associated on an IP address in the 169 space. For these and other use cases where a 169 DHCP IP address is not acceptable, you can create a new internal IP domain, and you can specify the desired IP address range. Let's change the IP domain of the device profile to our custom internal IP domain. Let's verify connectivity. Let's verify the IP address. For internal IP domains, cellular client traffic receives IP addressing from the Celona Edge. Traffic is NAT translated on the main native VLAN interface. If you need corporate site visibility of cellular clients or need to steer traffic to specific VLANs, that's where a Celona external IP domain comes in. As mentioned, by default on a new edge, there are no external IP domains defined. Let's change the IP domain of the device profile to our custom L2 native external IP domain. Let's verify connectivity. Let's verify the IP address. Let's find that IP address allocation on the switch. The MAC address for the client was created automatically by Celona, which we can see in the details page for the specific device. I will not connect to the L3 version of the native VLAN external IP domain, because the only difference there is that the edge itself has an IP address in the domain, given to it via DHCP just like the client. L3 is needed for advanced networking use cases such as supernetting, GRE or VXLAN tunneling, or IP multicasting, which we will look at in a future video. Let's change the IP domain of the device profile to our custom external IP domain on VLAN 1010. Let's verify connectivity. Let's verify the IP address. Let's find that IP address allocation on the switch. And now you can see why the switch does not have the edge as a DHCP client on VLAN 1010. It's because I did not define an L3 external IP domain on VLAN 1010. However, I do have an L3 external IP domain on VLAN 1020. Let's look at that next. Let's change the IP domain of the device profile to our custom external IP domain on VLAN 1020. Let's verify connectivity. Let's verify the IP address. Let's find that IP address allocation on the switch. Not only is the Edge on VLAN 1020 a DHCP client, but we are also using a different physical port for this external IP domain. The Edge Express node has 2 data ports, and the Celona administrator can choose either for any external IP domain, allowing for logical VLAN separation and physical separation by ports. In this video, you got to see how a Celona administrator can configure groups of devices to get IP addressing via Celona in an internal IP domain, or from an external IP domain and DHCP server, from individual VLANs trunked to the Celona Edge ports. Look out for more Celona product videos to get the most from your Celona Private cellular network.